Hi guys, this is Vidas,
And Ausra.
and we're starting episode 50 of Ask Vidas and Ausra podcast. And today's question was sent by Anna, and she writes that she tries to sit correctly on the organ bench, but she doesn't seem to be able to find her position, her convenient position. Ausra, is it a common problem for beginner organists?
Well, that's a very common problem. Knowing that you have to play on the different organs, that also might be a problem because when you're playing at your home place, let's say, or your church, you used to the instrument, but when you go to another instrument, you have to newly adjust to it. So the problem might be, it depends on, how are you the high person, or not, and how long you have legs, and what kind of instruments you are playing, can you adjust organ bench easily or not, and all that kind of stuff. So basically you have to experiment, because you must sit not too far from your organ and not too close to it. You have to be able to reach the upper manual and to play comfortable on the lowest manual, and of course be able to reach the pedal board.
Mm-hmm. So let's subdivide this question into some parts,
Yes.
some elements that we could discuss in greater detail. For example, the height of the organ bench, this is number one. The distance of the organ bench from the keyboards, this is number two. And perhaps even number three would be, uh, the how you sit on the organ bench, further or deeper or not so deep on the bench comparing to the keyboards. So how would you position the bench in terms of height? How for you, for yourself?
Well, I, do the height of the bench depending on the pedal board, because I must be able to play pedal comfortable, and because I don't have a very long legs, so I need to adjust organ bench according to that. And important thing is that the weight of my body when I'm sitting on the organ bench, I must feel it basically on the middle of my hip. So you don't press your tush hard, but you press your hips hard to the organ bench. I don't know if it makes any sense. That way I'm able to use, to move easily on the organ bench when I have to tone, for example.
Do your abdominal muscles have to be tensed or not when you play the pedals?
Well, actually, yes, we have to be.
And the lower you sit, the more you tense them,
Definitely.
right? That's why we don't use a normal chair. It would be too low, right?
Sure.
Mhm. And we would be really, we would really need to tense our legs and the abdominal muscles too much, probably in this way. So for me, I tend to sit on the bench and position the bench so that my feet would be when fully extended, they would be touching the pedals gently,
And
touching but not depressing.
your toes should be touching the black keys.
So that's another thing. If you position the bench so that your feet are touching when relaxed, full extended and relaxed, but not depressing, right? That's good. And then now you can investigate if the bench is close enough or not enough, not close enough to in position to the keyboards. So the thing is, your toes should be touching the sharps
That's right.
when relaxed.
Yes, sure. And of course, everything depends on what kind of instrument you're playing too, because sometimes you have to do exceptions. For example, if I'm playing on the Baroque instrument, sometimes I have to sit a little bit higher than I used to, because I use only my toes in Baroque pieces, so I don't have to use my heels, so I can sit a little bit higher on the bench, and then it is more comfortable for me to reach, let's say, a third manual, the upper keyboard.
Exactly. And then going forward with the last section of this question is how deep or how on the edge you can sit, right? So the lower the bench, the deeper you can sit,
Sure.
and vice versa. The higher the bench, actually the closer to the edge you must sit. But then there is a sort of a danger of slipping.
Well, yes, that's very often case with the organist, especially when you are wearing something very slippery. I don't think it's often the case with a male organist, but quite an often a case with a female organist, because sometimes we like to dress, nice and fancy, and with slippery sort of clothes, and that might cause a problem that you might, end up, on the pedal, falling down on the pedal board. Have you experienced something similar to this?
Yeah, when I have this suit, my organ clothes and on special festive occasions, then sometimes it's slippery to sit on the bench. It's not really comfortable. But when I use jeans, for example, my regular everyday jeans, it's also kind of sometimes the sweat might be another issue. Uh, the jeans might stick to the bench, then it's also not very nice.
Well, I haven't, experienced this kind of stuff that you are talking about, jeans, but I definitely have slipped from the organ bench. Luckily, that happened not during performance. And this usually happens when I have to play on the upper keyboard.
Hmm. Well, talking about the upper keyboard, people might have seen my pictures from my concert trip to Liepaja in Latvia in recent years. This organ has 4 manuals, and this fourth manual is so deep and so high. It's so uncomfortable to reach it and to play the pedals at the same time. The bench is very low, kind of low and positioned so that you could not really move it. So when you play the two lower manuals, it's kind of okay. You can adjust, even though it's not the best feeling. But the top manual is, is is extremely strenuous work for you. And then if you play, for example, with the pedals at the same time, you begin to sleep very soon.
Well, I would suggest that in that case, you might want to do your registration differently and maybe not to use that upper manual.
That's exactly what Latvian organ builder and our friend Janis Kalniņš said.
Yes, because sometimes, also when I tried to reach the upper manual in some kind of instruments, and I would put the organ bench very high up, and like the lowest manual then would be next to my stomach, and I would feel, that I'm playing not with my fingers but with my stomach on that lowest manual.
Hmm.
So it's always, a challenge to adjust to a new instrument.
So when the bench is too low, you can put like wooden blocks underneath the bench, and they raises the height. It's kind of easier. Or you put thick hymnals.
Sure, like all hymnals. Many churches have hymnals that don't use any longer, so you can use those.
Or old textbooks.
Yes, that would be nice.
But when the bench is too high and you cannot really adjust, then it's a problem.
Well, yes, that's
What
true.
can you do then?
Well, if you know that in advance, then maybe, adjust your repertoire. I would suggest for you then just to play a baroque music, that you would not have to use your heels. That's probably the best suggestion. Because if you will play like big romantic pieces on an instrument like this and you will not be able to reach no pedals very well, it will not be good. You cannot play legato then.
Or if you have organ shoes with high heels, it helps then.
Well, yes, it helps to some extent. And usually, if bench is too high for me, I try to sit closer to the manuals than usually. It helps a little bit.
To find this right balance
Sure.
between of not slipping, but also reaching
Sure.
the pedals. What about in situation when the organ console is movable and you could actually put some wooden blocks or planks or something underneath of entire organ console to elevate it? Is it possible?
Well, I think it's possible nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
I have never done it myself. I have never, had a need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's possible.
So when you can't adjust the bench height, you can maybe adjust the organ console height.
I'm just thinking how to lift it. It might be hard. Very heavy.
Anyways, organist profession requires for us to adjust to hundreds and thousands of different instruments, and that's the beauty of it, right?
Yes, it is. It's very exciting. Each time it's like a little adventure.
And never boring.
Sure.
You never know what will happen, even though you sort of know the situation, you are prepared in advance, and you have seen the pictures and you practice the right way when you when you sit down on that organ.
Yes.
Your plan goes out of the window.
That's true.
Wonderful, guys. Please practice more on unfamiliar organs. This is the only way you get more comfortable with tricky situations.
And then when you will go back to your home, your organ will be so easy to adjust to.
And please send us more of your questions, and the best way to contact us is through email, and you can do this by subscribing to our blog at organduo.lt and simply replying to any of our messages that you will get with our tips and advice about the art of playing the organ. Okay, this was Vidas.
And Ausra,
And remember, when you practice,
miracles happen.